My guest is Ann Bokelman. She's with the Old Bridge Preservation Society, and Ann, I'm so glad you're here. We have a lot to talk about.
Oh, I'm glad to be here too,
Okay.
Jim. Thanks for having me.
Give us a little history, because there is a rich history about the Old Bridge and what has happened in recent years.
Well, you know, if you ask anyone, do you know Sunset Beach? What do you know about it? One of the things that people would always say is, oh, I know Sunset Beach. They have that swing bridge.
Right, exactly.
And so it was really an important part of our community. In 2010, when the new high-rise bridge was being built, three of us got together and decided that the old bridge needed to be saved. We just couldn't bear the thought of it going to a scrap heap. It has so many memories. It's such an icon in the community. So we worked to get it saved, and we really didn't know that we were going to be the ones who would save it.
I'll bet you'd like to mention their names as well.
Well, yes, my partners are Chris Wilson and Karen Dombrowski. They actually had started working on it and asked me a couple weeks later after they got into this if I would help them. So the three of us worked to save the bridge. And when it turned out that we were actually the ones who would save it, we formed a small nonprofit, became a 501c3, and got the bridge over on dry land with the help of a lot of people.
Sure.
Including the construction company, English, who was building the new bridge, because they had to, in addition to building the new bridge, they had to get rid of the old one.
Right.
So they moved it over onto land that was donated for use by Clarice and Ronnie Holden. And that was in the winter, January of 2011, that the bridge actually was moved. So we've been working on it ever since to kind of rehabilitate and restore it, and our goal has been to open a museum.
And it's been well covered in the local newspapers, but now you're at the point where the museum is up and ready to go.
That's right. We actually opened the museum on Memorial Day weekend. We're really thrilled because, as I said, this is a goal we've been working toward since the summer of 2010,
right,
when we first started the effort. So we have the museum open the same hours the bridge is open, and we have some interesting exhibits there, and we would love for everybody to come and visit us.
Now, we were talking before we went on the air, and you were explaining to me that it's a two-story facility.
Right.
That originally those who ran the bridge were in the second floor.
Well, it's two stories, and a lot
Tell
of
us
people,
about that.
as they went across the bridge, didn't realize because they only saw the upper level. So the upper level was the office, and that's where the bridge tenders would spend their time when they weren't busy operating the bridge. They had a radio there, and they would communicate with boats who wanted to know, when are you going to open the bridge?
Right.
And they would take care of all their paperwork. But when it came time to open the bridge, they would make an announcement over the marine radio. We actually have this on videotape, so when you come and visit us, you can see what it was really like. But they would make an announcement that they were going to open the bridge in a few minutes. Please wait for the signal, which was the siren.
Right.
And then, you know, you can go through. And when they were ready to open it, there's a control panel, which is still there in the upstairs of the tender house, where they would turn the traffic lights red. They would drop the gates down that kept the traffic from coming onto the bridge. And then there's a spiral staircase that goes down to the lower level. So they go down there. And
well, let's talk about the lower level now. What was there at the time the bridge was operational, and what's there now?
Okay, well, what was there when the bridge was operational? There were two diesel engines, the main engine and a reserve in case the main engine failed. That diesel engine operating powered a hydraulic pump. And the hydraulic pump had a big control panel with levers, and they actually operated 3 winches with big steel cable. So one winch would operate the cable that pulled the bridge open, another would operate the cable that pulled the bridge closed, and the third one operated the counterweights. The counterweights are these big 9,000-pound blocks of cement, one on each side, one on each end, so 4 altogether. And what the counterweights did was to cause the metal ramp to lift up, and it would lift up on each end. So without it doing that, the bridge couldn't swing open because the ramps were in contact with the roadway. So the counterweights would allow the ramps to lift up, and then the bridge would swing open.
And now you have your museum and your other offerings there on the first floor. Is that right?
Right.
Tell us what's in there now.
Okay. Upstairs is the museum, and in the lower level we have our store. So this is part of how we raise money to keep the bridge operating.
Could I call it a gift shop? Or
you could. We call
close?
it the Old Bridge Store, but
Okay.
it is a gift shop, certainly.
Right. Good.
And we have all sorts of bridge memorabilia there. We have some really wonderful prints by Bunny Lazan, a local artist, and they're framed in wood from the bridge. We have things with our logo on it, Christmas ornaments, necklace, wine glasses, T-shirts, caps. We have some really cute children's things, toys, and some other memorabilia. So we have a lot of merchandise there that's all related to the bridge.
Good. Now, I want to divert for just a moment because it's such an interesting story. The bridge has a connection to the Civil War, and you were telling me about a ship that's of great interest called the Vesta.
Right, right. It's a wonderful story. And the short version of it is that during the war, there was a blockade on all of the southern ports. And so ships, in order to get cargo in for ordinary people, but also for the Army, would be called blockade runners. And they would pick up cargo in the Bahamas or Bermuda and bring it into Wilmington and other ports. So the Vesta was a blockade runner, and it was heading from Bermuda to Fort Fisher to deposit its cargo. And like most blockade runners, it was chased by some of the blockading ships. And on the 11th of January, the Vesta was being chased by, according to one account, 11 ships. But the Vesta was a new, innovative design with a twin screw and a really fast engine, and it outran all of those ships. And as darkness fell, the Vesta escaped and thought they were doubling back toward Wilmington, so they would be heading for Fort Fisher. About this time, the captain and some of the officers decided they should celebrate a little bit, and they broke into the whiskey stores that were part of the cargo. They became a little inebriated, and no one was minding the ship, so to speak, until about 2 in the morning. And the captain, I think, came to himself and said, well, maybe we better get this cargo to Fort Fisher. So he woke up the pilot and he said, we're at Fort Fisher, take us in.
Which was not true.
Except they weren't at Fort Fisher. They were by what is now Sunset Beach. So as they started running the ship in toward what they thought was Fort Fisher, they hit a sandbar and they ran aground.
Wow.
And they tried and tried to get it off the sandbar, but they couldn't. So they unloaded the paying passengers, which was pretty common on blockade runners, but a little bit risky, I would think. They unloaded the passengers, and then the captain was very worried about them being seized and also about the cargo falling into the federal hands, so he ordered the ship to be burned. Everyone escaped without injury, but all the cargo was lost. So there were rifles and shoes and books and whiskey, and apparently, by all accounts, a beautiful ceremonial uniform for General Lee sent by one of his admirers in England. So the Vesta burned down to the waterline. And in the next day at daylight, one of the Union ships came to check on it, and they wanted to see if they couldn't haul it away for capturing its cargo.
Right.
They weren't able to do that. All they got was 2 anchors. But they were fired upon by infantry on the shore, and they returned fire with a Parrott rifle, which fired these big shells. And we actually have one of those shells in the museum that was found on Bald Beach years ago in the 50s.
Yeah.
But the Vesta stayed there in the water, and at low tide it was visible, what remained of it, mostly the boiler. And people used to wade out to it and fish there because it was sort of like a natural reef. And if you look at old pictures of the fishing pier that was built at Sunset Beach, it was called the Vesta Pier.
How about that?
In the struts that hold it up, there's a bigger space, and when you look closely in the photos, you see the Vesta.
Well, it's a great story.
So the Vesta now is still there, but because the sand has grown at Sunset Beach, it's not out in the water anymore. It's up under the actual beach.
That's a significant piece of history for all of us here in Brunswick County.
It is. It really is. And this is the 150th anniversary year of the Vesta running aground.
Terrific. Wow. These endeavors don't occur without costs. You're a nonprofit.
Right.
I know you seek to raise funds locally or otherwise. Tell us about that. How do you raise monies? And is there a fee to go to the museum?
There is not a fee to go to the museum.
Okay.
We felt strongly about trying to keep it at no charge, but we always appreciate donations.
Sure.
It's been an expensive venture to restore the bridge and create the museum, and it's been a labor of love. We also have in the summer programs at the old bridge, and people can come to those, which are also free of charge. Our summer programs will begin on the 17th of this month.
Tell us just a little bit about the programs.
Well, they're really fun. On Tuesday nights, we have history talks, so we'll tell the story of the Vesta.
Great.
And even more interesting details than I've been able to tell you here. On Wednesday mornings, we have Young Explorers program. So that's for kids. It's from 10 to 1. And we're open then. We have special programs. They learn a little bit about the history. They learn about how the bridge works, some of the scientific principles. And then on Thursdays, we have Family Fun Night, and that's from 5 to 8, same hours as Tuesday night, 5 to 8 Tuesday and Thursday. We have some really interesting programs. One night is Pirates Night. You can learn to say "arg" and talk like a pirate.
Sure.
We have snakes and turtles and birds, oh my, and you can learn about some of the creatures that we share our environment with.
You mentioned activities of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but tell us a little bit more about Thursday.
Oh, Thursday is a great night because it's especially for families. So we have the pirates, we have the animal programs I mentioned. We also once a month have a cookout.
Great.
And for a small fee, $3, people can come and get a hot dog grilled on the grill and enjoy some refreshments and just have a really good time.
Terrific.
We have a wonderful group of volunteers who helps us put on all these programs, and they do a great, great job.
Tell our viewers about your website.
Okay, I'm sure that it will show at the end of the program, but it's oldbridgepreservationsociety.org. We also have a phone number you can contact us, and that's 910-363-6585.
Ann Bokelman, it's a great story. Thanks for being here and telling us about the Old Bridge Preservation Society. We appreciate it so much.
Thanks for having us, Jim.
Thank you.